The other community that was important to me throughout my growing up was horseback riding. I was an avid rider from an early age. I first started at a barn in Asheville that did 3-day eventing and quickly realized that was not the type of competition I had any interest in. So I moved to a barn in Black Mountain that focused on endurance riding, and that's really where I found my niche. In endurance riding, you are competing to finish a course of set trails that are anywhere from 25, 50, 75, or 100 miles in length. The way it is set up is the fastest person wins, but you do it in intervals. So you have 24 hours to complete 100 miles, you have 12 hours to complete 50, and they're broken down into loops by 10 to 15 miles. So when the starter gun goes off, you take off with your horse on your first loop. When you complete your first marked loop, you come back to base camp. You have to go through a vet check to ensure that your horse is still able to continue, and then you have about a 30-minute hold time where you have to eat and feed your horse, use the restroom, fix your tack, whatever you may have to do before your time starts again and you take off on your next lap. This was great fun for me because it was more than just competition. This was a sport that really fed my body and my mind. It was something that was important to me because I spent every afternoon with the same community training in some way, whether it be a ride or a run. I was always kind of honing my skill and spending time with like-minded people. Riding for me in many ways was where I found my strength and understood who I was as a person. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention I did endurance riding and I did this other crazy niche sport. There's some photos there called ride and tie. So endurance riding was a separate thing. I also did ride and tie, which is kind of the horrendous cousin to endurance riding because instead of a team being a person and a horse, your team is 2 people and 1 horse. And so when you start off, one person is running, one person is riding. The rider goes down the trail for a set amount of time, and then they get off their horse, they tie their horse to a tree, and they start running. When your partner who's running catches up to your horse, they get on the horse, and they ride past the partner now running, and you hopscotch all the way down the trail for 30 miles doing this. I don't know why I did that. Don't ask me to run like that today. It was another great use of my time to get me out in the woods, to get me training with these horses, to training with my mentor here. And I was fortunate enough that some of the best rides in the world occur at the Biltmore Estate. If you don't know this, the Biltmore Estate has acres and acres and hundreds of miles of trails, and they host some of the best championship rides in the country. So it was great fun every weekend to be able to go to Biltmore Estate to train and to ride. Riding was so important to me, not just because of the people, not just because of the horses, but because of the people it brought and the friendships I had. In particular, my middle school time, I made good friends with Corey. Corey and I were inseparable all throughout middle school. This was before I was deep into endurance riding, so at this point, Corey and I every afternoon were at the barn just trying to catch a free ride, anyone who would let us ride a horse. And if we couldn't get a ride, we were there just cleaning stalls or doing something that got us close by. The two of us were a bit menace to the society when we were together, but we had the best fun. My 8th grade year, there was a teacher workday in March, and our mentor, our trainer at the time, invited the two of us to go to a barn out in Asheville that she had been working with some young horses. Corey had been before, I had never been, so I was thrilled to finally be included. But for some reason, the night before, my anxiety got the better of me about riding these horses.
Neil told me from home that there's no sound coming over Zoom.
Oh, no, okay. I'll tell Lucy. So at the night before, I was incredibly anxious. I just did not want to ride these horses. I don't know why. I had been looking forward to this experience, but I just decided I couldn't do it. So I texted my trainer and told her that I couldn't be there. I made up some excuse and decided the next day that I would just hang out with my grandmother instead on the teacher work day. So they invited another friend, and Corey and my trainer and this other friend set off to this barn in Asheville to ride. And they had a great time, and on their way back, their two-door pickup cab was T-boned when a man ran a red light. The friend that was invited and my trainer were in the hospital for an extensive period of time, and Corey was killed at the scene in this wreck. I don't know why really bad things happen to good people. I don't know why it was Corey in the car and not me. I don't know why she is not here today. But what I do know is that this was the first moment in my life when I was angry at God. Many people talk about how when they're angry at God, they wonder if God is big enough to hold those feelings or if God is able to reconcile with their anger. And maybe it was my blindness, my naive 14-year-old self, but that didn't even occur to me. I was angry at God because Corey was gone. I didn't for a moment believe any of the platitudes or the niceties that people offered me in the days after, that it was part of God's plan, or that God was calling Corey home, or that her purpose was bigger. That's not true. But what I was angry about was that in spite of all of that, for some reason, the God of love that I was raised knowing let this happen, and I couldn't reconcile that. This happened during my 8th grade year, which meant that I was going through confirmation process at the time. So this happened on a Friday, and the following Sunday, I had yet to leave the house, and my mom offered, "Do you want to go to church? You have confirmation Sunday school, but it's up to you to decide." I knew that I needed to be around people who loved me, and I knew that my church family loved me. So I went. But as soon as I went into that Sunday school room, it was incredibly clear that that was not a place that I needed to be. Luckily, my wonderful confirmation mentor, who I've preached about before here, Jen Farr, was there, and she scooped me up, and we went and spent time together in one of the offices there, laughing and crying and telling stories and crying a little bit more. And all throughout that time, we were talking about why bad things happen to good people. Why our God of love lets things like this happen, or does it happen out of their control? What it means to be a person of faith and in a loving community. And really, the question that we talked about the most was, how was I going to get up the next morning and be a person of faith again? I don't have answers to all of those questions. I've spent a lot of time thinking about it and wrestling with it. But the one thing I do know is that I am so grateful for writing and the community it gave me. And I'm even more grateful for my church community that picked me up and put me back together when this space didn't feel like home for a while. Thanks be to God for all of the people who raised me and got me to this point, for the people who taught me, who helped me learn, who helped me move through the world. Thanks be to God for the church family, for the family of faith who wrapped me in love and showed me what it means to be a person of faith, what it means to wrestle with big questions and understanding the world when things are not all that easy. These folks are only a few of the many who got me to where I am today, but thanks be to God for each of them and the ways that they built a foundation that meant I could go out into the world as a person of faith and commit my life to ministry in a way that 14-year-old Emily never would have seen coming. Amen. Go ahead. Perfect. I think there's time for questions. I think that's usually how this rolls. So y'all are more than welcome to if you have questions. Yes. The prizes? Oh, Lucy is a liar. Setting me up like that, like there were going to be prizes. Yes.
So, in this story, what was it that called you to be a pastor? Being brought up in this community is one thing, but making a decision to be a pastor is something else.
Yeah. So Tony asked, what was it about being brought up in this community that made me choose to become a pastor? I talk a lot about the people who loved me and showed me love. I think for me, growing up, Ministry was always somewhere in the back of my mind, but I saw ministry as someone who got up and preached every Sunday, and I wasn't sure if that was for me. It wasn't until I got to college that I understood the love I felt in my faith community was the work of pastoral care, and that is actually 99% of what the work of ministry is. Ministry is about showing up and being present. It's about loving people when really hard things happen, and it's also about loving them when the mundane life moves on, and it's about celebrating the highs with them and everything in between. And I think for me, as soon as I made that connection, that you don't have to preach every Sunday. Thanks be to God to those who preach every Sunday. You don't have to preach every Sunday to do ministry. There's a lot more to ministry and a lot more to the ways that we love people as a family of faith, that I realized I had a deeper calling there that I wanted to be a part of. Yes. I didn't answer that, so I will. She was asking where I went to NC State, how did I decide, what did I study, how did I get to seminary? So as you can see, I loved agriculture, so NC State was the only choice for me. It was in-state tuition, and it got me agriculture. So I went to NC State to study animal science, thinking that I wanted to work in animal nutrition, go on to grad school, and then work for one of these big feed companies that formulates livestock nutrition. After about less than a year, I realized how miserably bored I was working in a lab on campus and was like, I can't do this. I took one level of chemistry and did not pass it and was like, okay, I can't do this. What degree can I get through here that means I don't have to take any more chemistry and I can work with people when I graduate? I was also at the same time very involved in the Presbyterian campus ministry group in Raleigh. And so that was a little bit of an influencing force in the back of my head as well that kept ministry present and there even when I didn't realize it. So by the end of my second year, I had already taken a history of Christianity course that I think everyone else slept through, but I loved. And I thought that religious studies might be something I wanted to do. At that point, I was like, religious studies in a secular context. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to go on and do graduate school to learn more about these religions from a secular place. So I switched, and I moved to religious studies, so in hindsight, I may have been better off down the road wearing blue, but I was committed to red, so I stayed. And I really loved that department and that community. That professor that taught the History of Christianity course, her name is Dr. Kathleen Cunningham. She's actually getting ready to retire this year, and she was in the first co-ed class at Princeton Divinity School. She is a powerhouse, and at the time when I had her, I was like, ooh, she's really old. And so now I'm like, wow, how old were you? She's still teaching. She was fantastic. She is fantastic, and she was brilliant and had such an incredible influence on my life because her focus was science and religion. So suddenly I was making this jump from a science major to a religious major, but I had someone there guiding me, helping me think about these two different areas kind of in tandem. So I finished NC State. As I finished up my time at NC State, I realized that maybe I needed actually the best thing for me would be not to go on and think about religion in a secular place, but to go on to seminary because I needed to think about faith and my own faith. I needed a chance to talk about it with words that connected faith to myself. So I was looking at seminaries and looking at a variety of different options. Dr. Cunningham was pushing me towards an Emory or maybe a Princeton or a Yale, something like that. And I was not so sure. I decided I wanted to go to a Presbyterian seminary, so let's keep the door open in case ordination is something that I want. And I toured a variety of different ones. My senior year, I toured Columbia Seminary with this admissions officer who met me on Good Friday in the pouring rain and convinced me that this was the community I wanted to be in. And that was when I first met the Lucy Strong, who helped me come to Columbia. From there, the rest is history. I quickly got to Columbia, and I found another loving community that embraced me, and it was clear that ordination was something that I desired. That was a really long answer.
You've also shifted in terms of what you thought you might do after seminary.
So Dave brought up a good point, that what I thought I wanted to do when I came into seminary and what I'm doing now are very different. When I came into seminary and I was thinking about ordination, I really wanted to do chaplaincy. I had an incredible experience at the VA. I really liked the idea of a 9 to 5 in a hospital with some on-call times. I liked the structure. I liked the pace of it. It was something exciting and new, so chaplaincy, that was going to be my thing when I graduated. And then in 2022, I got a job working with this church, and here I still am. And it helped me realize that all of the things I loved about chaplaincy, the structure of the schedule, the fast-paced nature of it, there are always new patients coming through, there was a different side of it that I really missed that I would get when I moved into a congregational context. In a congregation, I get to be with you people more than whatever your hospital stay is. I get to do life with y'all through all of the good and the bad. I get to see more of a person than just their diagnosis. And I get to be present with them through all of the different things of life. And that was a gift that I didn't know I needed at the time when I thought I wanted to do chaplaincy. Who knows? It may still be in the future, but for right now, this is where I need to be.
Emily, you still have a lot of family in Western North Carolina. Give us an update 9 months post-polio. Like, what's the real state of the world up there these days? Is there anything we can do now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So all of my family still lives in Western North Carolina. My immediate family's in Black Mountain, and then all of my cousins, for the most part, are in Western North Carolina and the surrounding areas. Fortunately, none of them were majorly affected, their homes and things like that, in Helene. But here, months out, I was actually just there last week with the youth at Montreat Youth Conference, and it was great to see the progress that had been made. At this point, the things that community, that part of the world are still facing are going to be long-reaching, if that makes sense. We still have folks who are not in homes. We still have roads that are washed out. But things are much better than they were. Progress has been made. That area is forever going to be changed. The landscape is always going to look different. And yet it looks the most normal than it has since Helene hit. Next Sunday, we leave on a trip. I'm taking middle schoolers and high schoolers with Central Presbyterian, and we're going to spend 4 days in Western North Carolina. A little bit of hurricane relief work, but actually the majority of our time is going to be learning about that community, understanding the challenges that it faced before Helene and how those have changed after the hurricane, and understanding the people that make up the community that Montreat is nestled in that we love so much.
Did you design that, the course?
The trip next week? Yes. So Susan, the director of family ministries at Central, and myself have been working on this trip, and it's been a little bit of a moving target. So when we first thought about it in the fall, we thought it would be more relief work. But the fact is that the relief work that's left to be done is not work that we can necessarily do. So many volunteers have come in to help and to put things back together, to collect debris, that right now what's left is big work. But what we can do is to show up and to learn more so we have a longer relationship with these people in this place and understand that community deeper. So when we go year after year to Montreat, we have a little bit more context of the space that we're entering. Walker, what do I see as the major challenges in working with the youth? I think I want to reframe that a little bit, because I deeply, deeply love our youth. It is a gift to spend time with our young people. And I can say that also in that when I came to seminary, when I started at Trinity, I was like, I'm never going to work with youth. I don't want to be pigeonholed into that. Every young person who goes to seminary, then they go work with youth. So that's not going to be me. Until I spent some time with them and I realized how much I love you guys. I think not necessarily one of the biggest challenges in working with youth, but one of the biggest challenges our youth face today are all of the ways that the world demands their time. And demands that are not theirs that they put on their schedule, but society has put on them, whether it be sports or extracurriculars, whether it be technology, social media, all of the different ways they are being pulled in different directions and losing sight of the people and communities that love them, because all of the other noise is so loud. And I think that's one of the best things about church, is that we can silence some of that noise a bit. Last week when we were at Montreat, one of our youth shared, it was the last night, it was her senior speech, and she was like, this is the 1 week out of the year where everything else goes quiet for me. And I can be with my people, and I can be present in a way that it's not possible any other time. And if I can keep creating spaces like that for our young people, then what else is there to do in ministry?
So to segue from that, perhaps, and not to assume any of your experiences, but what strikes me is that you've had an incredible gift of amazingly supportive community at pretty much every step of your life to ministry in this point. And I'm just curious, again, without assuming anything about your experience, are there any times, like more recently, when you felt like to follow your calling as a disciple or into ministry put you somewhat in challenge with your community or your context?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anytime we are loved by a community and we continue to grow and change as individuals, maybe the support that we felt in that community is not exactly the same support that we need today as our needs change. And I think that's very true. These people I just spoke about knew a very different Emily that grew up in Black Mountain than the Emily that stands in front of you today. I'm still part of me, and yet so much life has been lived since that time. When I was in seminary in particular and navigating the ordination process, anyone who has gone through that can know that it is not for the faint of heart. The coursework in seminary, and then you have a whole other load of coursework for the denomination in terms of exams and things that you need to pass, meant that sometimes tensions were tough as I figured out how to navigate this new chapter and what kind of support I needed from the communities who were like Black Mountain Pres, who were right there and ready to love me, but maybe because of the geographic separation or the time that had passed, didn't know what was best to help me, if that makes sense. And I think that was a tension that I was unfamiliar with. These were my people. These were the ones who raised me and loved me. What do you mean now I have to figure out what our relationship looks like now? That was a hard challenge, but one that if we're not doing it, how are we meant to be doing life together if we're not seeing us through those tough, tricky spots?
So as you morph from the Black Mountain community and then into NC State and all that, and now Atlanta, what's your feeling on differences between, the Atlanta urban sort of world and the small town world of Black Mountain, or the rural families? I'm interested in that perception, because I've always been in Atlanta.
Yeah, the difference in Black Mountain and Atlanta. Well, I don't know if you know, they're pretty different. Wow, I miss the mountains. No, when I was searching for a seminary, hold on, let me back up. When I went to NC State for the agriculture school. It was what made sense, but also in my head, it was really kind of the only choice for me. So that worked out sort of well. It got me on the path I needed to, even if it wasn't agriculture, but I never loved living in Raleigh. It never felt like home to me. So when I was searching for a seminary, I was looking for as much of a school as I was for a place that would be fun to live and that could feel like home to me for however amount of time I was there. So when I moved to Decatur, it felt like home to me. I love Decatur, that small town almost feel, but yet you're close to Atlanta. You have the option to be involved in as little or as much as you want, and it really did. It felt like a community and a home for me. Black Mountain and Atlanta, not similar, but I love them both dearly in different regards. I think for this season of my life, Atlanta makes sense because it provides me access to so many things that I wouldn't have in Black Mountain. There's always something going on here. It is fun to be a young person in Atlanta because there's always things happening. There's always education, there's fun opportunities, there's ways to meet people. in a way that back home, that's not something I can do. I do miss the mountains, though, a lot. Being in Black Mountain, growing up in Black Mountain, being outside was so much of my childhood that I hope one day I can make my way back to somewhere in Western North Carolina and call it home, so that if nothing else, I can be surrounded by my beloved Blue Ridge Mountains. Oh.
Well, this is not a question, it's just a comment to say, everything that you have experienced, I appreciate so much your sharing it with us, because now I think I can understand why these young people love you so much. Not only love you, but they want to be like you. You're a wonderful inspiration for our young people, and that's just, when you put it all together, you can see how you've developed, how you help them develop, how you show them the community of love. Just so grateful.
Thank you, Eve. That's very kind. It is truly such a surprise and my greatest honor to spend time with our young people. Yeah.
You have left out one of the most important parts about yourself that many people in the room do not know about. Just go ahead and get it out there.
So Chris and I have spent a lot of time together. Chris knows a lot about me. I got you. I'll repeat it. Chris knows a lot about me, and so she's setting me up here to share something that I conveniently left out of my slides. And I think I know where she's going here, because I told you about ride and tie, and I thought that that was what she was going to call me on. But I did leave out all of my pets. Is that where we're going? Okay. Yep. So I have pets at the manse. I have a dog. He is 90-pound yellow lab. He's only about 2, and he's full chaos all the time, and he's the best entertainment. But he's the tamest of my pets. I also love reptiles. I don't know how many of you all this word has spread. Once I told men's breakfast, somehow now everyone at Trinity wants to see my turtles. So I have reptiles. I grew up, my dad had a huge collection of reptiles forever and always. It was his thing. The biology teacher, it was very topical for him to have all of these reptiles. So once I moved out, that love was instilled in me, and I was like, yes, I have adult money. I'm going to do this. So I have several tortoises, and I have a gecko, and I have a frog. I think what I probably should mention before Chris calls me out again is that one of my turtles in particular, he's only 6, and so he's about 25 pounds, but he is an African sulcata, which is the 3rd largest species of tortoise in the world. So that means he'll outlive me. I hope I have children who can't wait to have this tortoise. And he'll be probably in the range of 100 to 150 pounds when he's full grown. I left that out, but yes, that is very much so a part of who I am. For now, he lives, so they all live in cages. Oh, yes, when I got him, this is another funny story. When I got this tortoise, he was from a breeder in Florida. I was living in college at the time in a dorm apartment that should not have had any pets and had way too many pets living under the bed. And I ordered him, so they sent him to me overnight in a little shipping box, and I opened it up, and sitting in the shipping box was a blueberry container, one of those little clamshells that you get blueberries in, and he was sitting in the center of it, and he was the size of a silver dollar. He is not the size of a silver dollar anymore. They do all live in cages, let me just say, since I live in the manse, they are all contained, they're not free range. But it's brilliant now that I live in the manse, and I have my own reptile room. It's fantastic.
Well, I can follow that up. Have you seen the exhibit at the,
At Fernbank?
at Fernbank?
No, people keep telling me that Fernbank has a turtle exhibit coming, so maybe that's an outing, a church outing we need to do. I'll just walk you all through the turtle exhibit and point out turtles that I love. Oh, okay, perfect. When we were planning, when we were talking about this speaking of faith, Rebecca was like, well, you should just bring one to walk around the whole time. I was like, whoa, no, hold on. No.
Well, living in the manse and loving turtles, I want to invite you to perhaps repopulate
Yes, box turtles are quickly moving towards an endangered species, which absolutely breaks my heart. So if you see a turtle on the road, move it off the road, take good care of them, but don't move the box turtle far. They're incredibly territorial, so if you move them outside of their house, they're going to fight with whoever already lives there. But yes, box turtles kind of becoming a thing of the past, which breaks my heart. Anything else? Oh, yes.
When you first got your job here at Trinity, was there anything in particular that drew you to working here at this church?
I'm going to be honest. When I first started at Trinity, it was Sunday morning AV help. And I ignored the email that was asking if I was interested in the job a couple of times because at the time I was like, nope, I don't want to work Sunday mornings. I'm going to do that for the rest of my life. And then I realized that if I worked at Trinity, I could help kind of make ends meet on my rent payment. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. So that's not a very fair answer. My first intro to Trinity, it was very practical why I came here. But after being here for several months, I started in February, so by April or so, I was looking for a supervised ministry, and that's when Andrew Escada called me about the Trinity Fellow position, which was working with our high school youth.